Hello and welcome to Twisted Britain, a podcast on true crime in Britain with a sprinkling of the weird and the macabre. And your hosts are me, Bob Dale.
And me, Nadine Royal. We're a couple of friends who met in the pub and developed a friendship based on our mutual love of booze, podcasts and pub quizzes. We met in the Settle Inn in Stirling, and that's where we record.
Each week we'll both tell a story of something twisted, one long one and one short one, and we'll decide who goes first.
Based on the flip of a coin.
And although this week I have the coin, it is literally the only thing I have with me.
This week we're going, I was going to say old school, but I guess it's new age. We're recording on our phones.
We're also in a cellar.
Well, the pub's busy and loud. We did upload a small video to show you our new surroundings for this week on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter, so you can find it on there if you're interested to know why the sound's so different.
Hopefully it sounds alright, and if it doesn't, we apologise. We will be back to normal next week. It's a bit unfortunate that we're in here, but we are fairly dedicated to our pub recording.
Feels more intimate.
Here we are.
Sat on a couple of wooden deck chairs across from each other, surrounded by cans of cola, kegs and crisps. What could be better?
So this is our first full recording since I got home from the holidays.
Yes, from your holidays, which is actually not my idea of a holiday, but it looked wonderful nonetheless.
Yes, nice 17 days in Nepal is not bad for the soul.
17 days hiking up and down a mountain, not for my soul, but I'm very proud of you.
8 days to hike to the bottom of a mountain.
True.
Is how somebody on my Facebook put it. And I was like, thanks very much. But I did my best. No, it was cool. I really loved it.
No, you did amazingly.
Everybody's been really nice. And to everybody that sent me thank yous and congratulations and pictures of big jackets, thank you very much. That was very much appreciated. When we got random Wi-Fi on the way up, I had a good laugh at some of the images. Apologies I didn't post so much, but it was Everest Link Wi-Fi is not... It might be the most extreme Wi-Fi in the world, but it's not the best. But yeah, how you been? You all right?
I'm all right, thanks. I'm all right.
We have recorded since I got back.
We have done. We did
our special Patreon episode.
We did, which is out now.
It is, and if you are a subscriber to our Patreon...
we hope you enjoyed it.
We hope you enjoyed it, and do let us know. We left you a message in it to say get in touch with us about anything, and we've had a couple of comments, so
yep.
We will address them in future episodes.
Yep.
I'm a bit lost tonight. I don't know where we're at.
A bit out of sorts.
I'm going to caveat the beginning of this episode with, this is the first time I've ever felt the need to say that there is some kind of disturbing bits in my story. It's a very, it's the most modern story I think I'll probably ever do.
Right.
It's one I've had on my list for quite a while because I kind of feel not associated with it in it by any means. I'm not associated with the crime in its way, but it kind of, it touched me as such. And I remember it happening at the time, and I've had it on the list, and I've not thought about wanting to do it properly for a while, but I just kind of said to you the other night, this is one that's a bit harrowing, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
It should have probably been a longer story, so apologise if this is a bit of a longer episode, especially because we don't know what it's going to sound like. But yeah, that's my kind of...
Warning.
Yeah, warning. This isn't one for... not that any of our episodes are for kids, but this is not one that I would recommend for those of the weaker heart, shall we say.
Mine, in contrast, is I presume is going to be a bit more light-hearted than yours. Mine does not come with a warning.
Good. I think everything we do should come with a warning, to be honest.
Mine's quite old. Maybe I don't think I'm ever going to get older than murdered by a ghost.
Nope.
But pretty old, and I have a confession.
Go on.
I didn't do my research this week.
Oh.
Somebody else did.
Oh, who did your research?
Simon!
Oh, right, okay.
So during the Easter holidays, Simon got in touch with me and said that there was a story that he thought I'd be good to cover and that I'd find really interesting, and that it's more of a historical one, which is more Bob's thing, and it might be fun for me to do, and would I mind if he sent me some research? And I said, by all means, Simon, that'd be amazing.
Well, do you know what? That's amazing, isn't it?
It's really lovely. I'm really grateful.
We've got to that stage where people want to cover things.
So well researched that it even had references and a link to a fun song about how much somebody loves onions.
I hope you gave him a mark out of 10.
I didn't, but I shall. 10 out of 10, Simon.
10 out of 10, perfect. Shall we stop the blithering and crack on then?
Yeah, let's go.
Right, I've got a coin here. It's not the one. Now, I did tell you during the Patreon episode, but I had such a fluster coming out of the house that I don't have the Nepalese rupee that I want to bring up.
Well, Well, you don't have anything you wanted to bring up, so I'll forgive you.
Thanks very much. But I do have this lovely 10 pence.
With the Queen's face, let's go. I'm going to say heads. I go first.
Heads, you do go first.
Ooh, okay. Right, let me get my...
Or Simon goes first.
I do feel a bit guilty actually that somebody's done all my work for me, but what a lovely thing for such.
Did you do anything to it, or did you just take it as verbatim?
No, I didn't. No, I just pretty much took it for. He referenced it. You know, I trust Simon. He's a clever man, and I don't think he will have spun me a web of lies.
A yarn.
Yeah. I retyped it somewhat into my kind of speaking pentameter.
Great word.
Thank you.
Don't know if it's real.
It is. It's pentameter is like the rhythm of a poem and stuff.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. Word of the week, not one that I had to learn for once.
Mine.
Yeah, so I did retype it somewhat and kind of there was a lot of information, and I've tried my best to kind of condense it as much as I can into like a long but not too long a story. But we'll see. Let's go.
Let's go for it.
So my story, or Simon's story, is the story of Jack Shepard.
Okay.
So, he was born on the 4th of March in 1702.
Oh, you're beating me. That's for sure.
And died on the 16th of November, 1724. Blimey, 22. I've only just realised.
There you go.
Very young. There was an autobiography written about Jack, which was written by Daniel Defoe, who's the author of Robinson Crusoe.
Yes.
It's also thought that Jack Shepard is where the inspiration for the phrase or the name Jack the Lad comes from.
Okay.
And you will see during the story, he is quite the lad.
He's quite the lad.
He was born in Spitalfields, London, which coincidentally was the home of all the Jack the Ripper victims, but that came 150 years later, so no relation. He did have an older brother who had died earlier on in life, and he also had a younger sister who died when Jack was young. So it's like quite obvious that he's from a poor family. You know, with like infant deaths.
Yeah.
And this is also indicated by the fact he was baptised the day after his birth, which is like quite common when you expect your children to die quite young, because you don't want them to die unbaptised.
Okay.
He was 6 when he was sent to work in a workhouse, as his mum couldn't support the family alone, because his dad, Thomas, who was a carpenter, had also died when Jack was young. So he had quite a hard upbringing. He was then apprenticed to a cane chair maker, but his master died shortly after.
Right, okay.
And then he was apprenticed to a second cane chair maker, but he treated Jack quite badly. So not a great start in life for our Jack. When he was 10, he went to work as a shop boy for William Kneebone. Great name. Simon also thought, great name.
What did he do? What was the shop?
He was a wool draper.
Oh, I just wondered if, like, Kneebone, he was... I don't know what you would be if you were, you know, like a smith, a blacksmith or something, you know, I don't know. No?
Some knee specialist.
Loved knee pads.
No, he was a wool draper.
Okay. Maybe he loved knee pads anyway.
Maybe he made woolen ones. Drape them over your knee. Jack's mum already worked for William Kneebone, so he got that job quite easily, probably. Kneebone taught him how to read and write, and then he apprenticed him to be a carpenter in Covent Garden in 1717.
Okay.
So he would have been 15 at that point.
Just a boy.
Just a young lad.
Just a lad.
Just a Jack the lad. Then there's a bit of a gap in his history, but he did serve 5 years in prison, we know, but not sure why. And then he began his life of crime in 1722.
Okay.
So just 2 years before he died. So 20 years old he was. He was described as being slightly built and was only 5 foot 4 inches tall, which would later help him in his escapes.
Oh, right, okay.
He apparently had a stutter, but he was quick of wit, good-looking, and popular in local drinking taverns, which is where he would meet 2 of his criminal partners.
Sounds like a
Jack the lad!
No, he sounds like a lot of people that come in here to drink.
Yeah. The first of these criminal partners is Jonathan Wild. So he was a local gang leader, crime lord type, who is self-proclaimed as the thief-taker general.
Oh.
So his gang would steal stuff and then claim the reward for finding it after it had been reported in local papers.
All right, okay.
He'd also find rival criminals or gang members who complained when he took the majority of the money from these rewards. And then he'd claim the reward for handing them in. Like handing in the criminals.
So he was working on, like, what, 3 parts there?
Oh, yeah. Major.
A smart guy.
Good old Jonathan Wild. Well, not good old. Jonathan Wild.
Yeah.
The shit. So, also, good little bit of information that Simon found. They think that the phrase double cross comes from Jonathan Wild because he had a system of keeping a record of all the thieves he knew or who he worked with, and if they annoyed him, they got a cross next to their name, and the second cross meant that they would be sold to the authorities for hanging.
Oh, right, okay.
So they think that's where double cross comes from.
Sold to the authorities for hanging. That's
quite the business.
Quite a phrase, isn't it? Yeah.
This is, though, now thought to be a myth, as apparently the term double cross only first appears in 1834, which is a good 100 years later.
Yeah, but he was doing double cross, so you wonder if it was because somebody had seen that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jonathan Wild had such fame as like a thief catcher that he was asked by the Privy Council, which I didn't know what that was, so I googled it. It's the body of advisors to the Sovereign of the United Kingdom.
Yes.
So he was asked by the Privy Council how to control crime, and he suggested increasing the reward, which he was obviously claiming.
Which he was benefiting from. Yeah. He was a smart guy. Okay.
Jonathan Wild. Got those wilds?
Nope, carry on.
Cool. So, back to Jack Shepard. He fell in with other criminals and drank a lot, and he even befriended a prostitute who, real name, Elizabeth Lyon, better known as Edgeworth Bess.
Edgeworth Bess.
Great name.
To get a nickname as a prostitute, I guess you were pretty good at your job.
Probably.
Or you've come up with it yourself. And either way, still a cool name.
Great name.
Yep.
He started his thieving by stealing 2 silver spoons whilst he was on an errand at work, and then he continued to steal from houses while he was working in them as a carpenter. He left his master in 1723 and then continued his life as a burglar and fell in with Jonathan Wild's gang.
Okay.
He moved in with Bess in Piccadilly. She was then arrested, and when Jack was told he couldn't visit her in prison, he broke in and freed her.
Love's lost. What is that sentence?
I don't know.
Love's not lad. Anyway.
Whatever. Bess and
Jail love.
Jack.
Jail love. Bess and Jack. It's not Jack and Rose, is it?
Fuck that. So, let's get to his escapes, because that's the really exciting stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
So, he was arrested because he was later betrayed by Wild and his gang.
Too many crosses.
At least 2. So, he was later betrayed by Wild and his gang for the reward of £40. I did it. Today, £8,626 and 12 pence.
I'd betray you for that.
I was literally, when I wrote that number down, I thought in my head, yeah, I'd sell Bob for that.
Thanks. We're easy pleased.
And this was in February 1724.
Okay.
The year that he dies.
Right, okay.
So, February 1724, arrested because Wild hands him in. Within 3 hours of being imprisoned on the top floor of the local prison, Jack escapes by breaking through the timber ceiling and then lowering himself to the ground using bedclothes and rope.
Right.
During the breakout, this is amazing. During the breakout, tiles were falling from the roof, which alerted people, and then a crowd gathers to watch because they're like, "Oh, what's going on at the prison roof?"
Right.
This crowd are then watching. Jack has lowered himself down to the floor, joins the crowd, still wearing all his irons, round his wrists and his ankles, and he points to the shadows on the roof, saying that, there's the criminal, which distracts the crowd, and then he, runs off into the night.
Proper Jack the Lad.
Right?
Yeah.
So, only a couple of months later, in May, Jack was arrested again for picking pockets near Leicester Square, and Bess visits him in prison but is recognised very quickly as his wife and is arrested too. The pair of them are then sentenced to a sentence in New Prison. It's called N, New Prison.
Oh, right, okay.
In Clerkenwell. But both escape by filing through their manacles, and manacles are irons.
Yeah, it's handcuffs.
Yeah, round your wrists, around your ankles that are connected by a chain.
Yeah.
So yeah, old school handcuffs.
Proper folk marching into.
Yeah. So they file through them. They remove the bar from the cell in the from the window in the cell, and then they climb out of the window down knotted bedclothes to the prison yard, where they then climb a 22-foot wall and escape.
Did you actually fact check this, or has he just sent you the plot of a movie?
I don't care, I love it. And this escape is documented in local papers, and this is the kind of start of Jack's fame. He becomes quite well known as this totally incredible escape man. Lost my words.
I think you did wonderfully, though.
Thank you. So he then had another acquaintance, another criminal type who he met in drinking taverns as well, called Joseph Blake, better known as Blueskin.
Oh, good.
I know.
It's full of great nicknames.
I know, I love it. So, Blueskin knocked out a drunk passerby in order to rob him, and the man was going to drown face down in the mud had Jack not stepped in and held his head up to save him. So even though he is part of the crime and robbing him, stepped in and saved the man.
Still didn't want the guy to die, he was just trying to rob him.
So one thing that kind of like comes through is that Jack's not a violent man.
No.
He might be a criminal and a burglar, but he's not a violent man.
Yeah, okay.
And this actually helps him later on, like with people quite liking him because he's not this violent criminal type.
Okay.
In July, Jack and Blueskin burgle Jack's former master, William Kneebone, the wool draper, and then Wilde, his former criminal associate, decides to arrest him and to hand him in again because he's got a warrant out for his arrest to claim the reward.
Of course, which he's managed to get put up anyway.
Yeah. So Wilde finds Jack by getting Bess really drunk and making her reveal his whereabouts.
Oh, Bess.
I know. Love. What are you doing?
He broke you out of jail. Don't betray him.
Yeah. Gets drunk, loose lips,
Sink ships.
and pan Jack over.
In fact, and I'd like to just give a shout out to Bethan from Seeing Red. Was it Bethan that got it wrong? Loose lips, do something else. If you're listening to Seeing Red. Oh no, I think it was Mark because I mocked them, but anyway.
Either one.
Yeah, loose links. No, I can't even do it. Sorry, guys.
Well, now they can mock us back.
Yeah, they
Thanks,
can.
Bob.
Yeah.
So Wilde does find Jack and catches him and then hands him in, and he's then convicted in August of the same year. 2 weeks later, in prison, the death warrant for Jack arrives, and his execution date is set for September 4th, and on the same day as he receives this death warrant, he escapes!
Of course he does.
So he escapes this time by gradually loosening a bar in his door with a file or a saw that he somehow obtained.
Has he always got a file secreted somewhere?
It'd be a good move if you're getting arrested.
I mean,
all
if you're
the time.
a career criminal, keep a file up your bum? That's definitely not a saying.
That's going on a t-shirt. If you're a criminal, keep a file up your bum. Also, how thin are these
Advice by Twisted Britain.
how thin are these bars? 2,
Really
how
wondered.
long is he filing for?
I also
How does
really
nobody
wondered
know
where you were
it?
going there. How long? Never mind.
How thin? So he loosens this bar in his door with a file or saw that he somehow has. And Bess and her friend visit Jack in prison. And whilst they're there, they distract the guards. I presume using their womanly wiles.
Was that your distracting the guards dance there?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
So they distract the guards, and whilst they're doing this, Jack removes the bar, slips out of the gap, aided by Bess and her friend who, like, pull him out the gap. And then he walks right out of the prison wearing women's clothes that they brought to him.
Ah, nice. Mm-hmm. Have we not done somebody else that wore women's clothes to do something? It might not have been. I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts. I'm sure that's
I
happened.
like how you now can't remember what we've said or what other people
no.
have said.
That's really bad, isn't it?
I did actually, when I was doing this, I was like, I hope Bob's not done this story. And I was like, it's really bad if I don't know that.
Well, maybe I have.
Well, if this is the second time through, I hope I'm doing better. So, by this point, his reputation's really built up. Because he's, as I said, non-violent. Also, he's attractive. He's good. He's apparently good-looking. There's a couple of, like, drawings of him, which I'll post. We can all vote, I suppose.
Yeah.
And he's, like, this escape artist, and people love that. Because it's, like, quite hilarious.
Yeah, and there's something that, like, everybody loves.
You're rooting for him a little bit.
Yeah, everybody loves somebody that's...
Everybody loves a Jack the Lad.
Well, yeah, okay. Yeah, they do.
He's a Jack the Lad. So, he's then arrested again, just over a week later, because he's so well known and he keeps escaping and he's got all these warrants out for him. So he's arrested again. This time, they keep him in something called a strong room in prison. And after the guards found files and other tools in his cell, they then decide to put him in a room known as the castle.
Oh, cool.
And in this room, his legs were put into leg irons, so like shackled between them.
Yeah.
And he was chained to 2 metal staples on the floor to keep him shackled down.
Yeah, so the idea is he's not going anywhere.
You're not going anywhere. So, whilst he's there, he finds a small nail on the floor, which he manages to pick up and he practices picking the locks of his leg irons during the night. He manages to get out of his leg irons, but he finds that he can't escape the room in any way. So he takes to freeing himself during the night so he can get a more comfortable sleep. And then in the morning, just before the guards come round, locks himself back up so that they don't know he can escape.
So he's had a good night's rest, but he's back in the leg irons.
Back in the leg irons, back shackled to the floor. Unsurprisingly though, one morning he's caught, unshackled. And he's put in handcuffs, which weren't to be removed no matter what, despite all of his begging, which he did profusely. But it turns out, all of his begging was a facade. He could escape the handcuffs, and he just wanted the guards to think he couldn't.
Jack the lad.
Jack the lad. So he unlocks the handcuffs and chains one night, and he manages to climb up the chimney in his room. Still with irons on his legs, though, climbs up the chimney, but finds that he can't pass this metal bar that's inside, that's there to stop people.
To stop people climbing out the chimney?
Yeah. So what he does is he eventually dismantles the brickwork of the chimney to remove the bar and manages to climb up through that chimney and into a room that hasn't been open in 7 years and is locked.
Wow.
So, and this room, I've not written it down. I think it was called the Red Room.
Okay.
And it was this room that they used to keep, I've not written it down. Sorry, Simon, I've totally ruined it here. But it wasn't Bonnie Prince Charlie, but people of the like.
Okay.
So these famous kind of criminals. I can't remember. Sorry. I was trying to condense it and I was like, that's a good fact, but we don't need it. Now I've got to say it.
Now you've come out and said it.
Well,
we'll look it up and post it later.
Yeah. So he gets into this locked room that's not been open for 7 years. He then breaks through 6 doors, which lead to adjoining corridors, gets through all of them with a variety of techniques, which include breaking hinges, unpicking locks, loosening metal brackets, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just gets through 6 doors in this prison.
He sounds like the guy you want on your escape room team.
Oh, 100%. You don't need to do the riddles. He'll just pick his,
He just
pick
pick
the way
his
out.
way out clean.
You're in there for 5 minutes and he's already up the bloody chimney, you know?
Whether he needs to or not.
Chimney, that's the way. So after getting through these 6 doors, he is in the prison's chapel. He then manages to get onto the roof of the chapel, which is 60 feet high. So he then goes all the way back to his cell, to his room, to the castle. To get back into his cell, he then gets a blanket, which he then uses as a rope to climb from the chapel roof to a roof of a house.
Right.
He then breaks into that house and manages to get all the way out through the house without the people who live there finding him.
So he breaks in and breaks out
Yep.
of somebody's abode.
Somebody's house.
Wow.
Yep.
I like this guy.
He's great, isn't he? And apparently he did this by, he sits in the house and stays really, really quiet until he hears somebody go out the door downstairs and he's like, right, now's go time.
Now's the time.
Yeah, and he gets out, totally unsuspected. He then goes and hides in a barn, which is some distance away, and he's eventually able to convince a passer-by who's a shoemaker to bring his blacksmith tools to him to help him remove his leg irons. And he manages to do this because he befriends another guy who's been in prison, and he was put into prison for some arbitrary minor crime, and he's quite sore about it. And then this blacksmith has exactly the same story as that guy, just becomes pals with them, and he's like, yeah, help me get these irons off.
Brilliant.
Shoemaker's like, yeah, no bother.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yep. Whilst he's inside prison this time, though, Blueskin is arrested by Wilde and his gang. And before, though, they manage to hand Blueskin over, he attacks Wilde and slashes his throat with a pocket knife.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but this doesn't kill Wilde. It just puts him into, he's got to rest and recuperate.
Has a couple of days off.
Has a few days off. And, yeah, so Blueskin got a good kick in there.
Yep.
Before he goes away. So, Jack's escaped. And this was in August. In November, he's arrested again for theft of a pawn dealer, and he thieves from him this marvelous black suit and these fabulous rings and jewellery and stuff, and he just goes on a big big night out, really.
Just looking dapper.
Goes on the piss, yeah, looking smart as hell. And when they arrest him, he's like wearing all this like finery. And they arrest him and he's like really drunk.
Oh, brilliant.
Just having the time of his life. This time they place him in a middle room, which is a stone room. And he's observed at all times. And he's also loaded down with 300-pound weights.
Wow.
To try and keep him in one spot. Keep him in.
Well, they probably...
He climbed up a chimney this time.
I was going to say, they probably just started devising stuff specifically for him.
So, visitors were allowed still, but they were charged an entry fee. And the king's portrait painter comes and paints a portrait of him, because he's getting so much fame by this point. Everybody knows about Jack the Lad, like Jack Shepard by this point. So the king's portrait painter wants to paint a portrait of him.
That's brilliant.
Very cool.
Do we have a picture of the portrait?
I think I can get one.
Yeah, definitely.
Simon, also, at the end of Simon's notes, included hella lots of photos. Very lovely. Simon, you're truly the best.
Simon, this should have been my story.
I knew you'd be jealous.
I'm not overly... I love the story. I'm not overly happy at the situation.
Sorry. So, Daniel Defoe, who was then just a journalist, writes an account on Jack Shepard called The History of the Remarkable Life of Jack Shepard.
Yep, okay.
Jack's offered a reduced sentence if he informs on Blueskin, who's now in custody.
Yeah.
Jack refuses, though, because he's a good man.
Okay.
And Blueskin's hung anyway.
Yeah, I mean, good man's a stretch, but yeah, okay.
Blueskin's hung anyway, though.
Oh.
And then Jack is sentenced to be hung a week later.
Right.
So he then plots to escape by cutting through his binds with a penknife, but unfortunately this time the guard discovers his penknife and takes it away. He then goes to be hung, and he's marched through London, and the procession is said to have been attended by a crowd of around 200,000.
Wow.
Who have come not to see him hang in the, like, woo, somebody's hanging fashion, but have, I think, come to see him.
Come and see him.
Yeah, because he's like this, he's like this famous guy now. And this, you're going to love this. The procession is halted on Oxford Street, where Jack has a pint.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Good
he gets
lad.
a little pint on his way.
Good.
He was hung, and it took 15 minutes to kill him because he was so little, so his neck didn't snap. He was strangled.
That was before the whole long drop rope measurings and all that. So he was just strangled to death.
For 15 minutes.
Oh, that's horrible.
After he's dead, his body is surrounded by the crowds who are trying to protect his body from being taken away for medical dissection and stuff.
Okay.
But inadvertently, this actually prevents his friends from taking the body, who had a plan to rush him to a doctor nearby and have him revived.
Oh.
Yeah, so he dies, which is very sad.
Yeah, we wouldn't be telling the story otherwise.
No.
Well, we might be.
I think I would be still, he's amazing. So 2 weeks after Jack's death, a play opens all about him and his life.
Oh, I wonder if you can still get the script for it.
I don't know, I can't even remember what it's called. But yeah, it's not called Jack Shepard, it's called something.
No, I'm gonna try and find it.
And then in the 1800s, for 40 years, they ban the use of the name Jack Shepard in the title of like plays and stuff for fear of it encouraging others.
All right, okay.
And Frank and Jesse James, the famous, signed their letters to the newspaper, Jack Shepard.
Oh, cool.
And there are 3 films that are directly named after him, and like many songs, many plays, many films. There is countless stuff all based around Jack Shepard, because he's just this famous man.
Are they films that are like of his life, or just based on him, or?
I need to look into the plot, but it was like one was called like Jack Shepard, one was called Jack Shepard 93 or something. Like it was they're all called like different things, but they're all like directly named after him.
Oh, okay, cool.
At least. We need to make it like a Twisted Britain movie list, because
we should do actually. We've talked about a few.
We've now got the robbery that I did last time.
Yeah.
And then.
And the one I talk about later, there was a
robbery I did last time. Robbery I did for Patreon. Sorry, everybody else, but.
And the one I'm going to do later, there was a drama documentary. What do they call it? A docu-series? A docudrama.
Nice.
Made about it, and it's very, very good.
Oh, nice. We're going to have to make a list. A watch list. So, last bit, just to tie up some loose ends, as Simon called them, which was quite nice. Wilde missed Jack's hanging as he was still recuperating from the old neck slash that he suffered.
As you would.
Yep. And due to the press interest and knowing that it's Wilde's fault that Jack was ever arrested and stuff, he became quite publicly despised. He was like the villain of the whole thing.
Well, I mean, he was a villain.
Well, he was a shit.
Yeah, I'm alright with that.
He's arrested in 1725, a year later after Jack's killed. I was about to say murdered, after he was hung.
Yeah.
He tried to run his business from jail, but his gang members began turning in evidence, including bribery, against him. And his final trial was on the 15th of May, 1725, and he was eventually convicted of stealing lace a few months earlier.
Lace was worth a fortune.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was like a really serious crime. And he was sentenced to death, and supposedly he was terrified of this death sentence, and he couldn't eat, and he began to lose his mind. And on the morning of his execution, he tried to commit suicide by drinking laudanum, but he vomited and sunk into a coma instead, from which he didn't wake.
Right, okay.
But they hung him anyway.
Of course.
On the 24th of May. And, great little fact, the hangman had been a guest at his bloody wedding.
Wow.
Because he was like in the pockets of all these, he was turning in criminals.
Yeah, because he knew all of them. Yeah.
So he was at his wedding, hung him. Daniel Defoe also wrote an account of the life of Wilde. And Wilde was eventually, he was buried after being hung. He was eventually dug up and sold to the Royal College of Surgeons and was dissected, and his body is still on display in the Hunterian Museum. Simon's seen it!
Oh, that's cool.
How cool is that? And Sherlock Holmes also later referred to Moriarty as a latter-day Jonathan Wild.
Oh, right, okay.
So a lot of fame from this story.
Yeah.
It's a lot of origins of villains and escape artists and Jack the Lad. And
it actually doesn't surprise me that this is the sort of story that Simon would find.
I know, it's actually excellent.
Yeah.
It's actually excellent. I loved it. I thoroughly enjoyed reading it and writing it and again and stuff and going through all the facts and stuff. It was excellent because he sent me it a couple of weeks ago, during the Easter holidays.
Yeah.
So it was a couple of weeks ago he sent me it and I read it and was like, that's bloody good. That's my next long one.
Yeah, good.
Thank you so much. Again, thank you so much.
I'm gonna give you 8 out of 10.
Thank you.
For your reading. You lose the 2 for not doing the research yourself.
That's fine, I'll take that.
Simon can have the other 2 out of 10. No, that's not
12 out of 10, Simon.
You can have 12. That was good.
Thank you.
Really, do you know, I'm surprised I haven't come across that story
I'm
before.
surprised.
And if I had, I would have done it by now.
Yeah, definitely. That's a classic Bob story.
It really
I think that's
is.
why Simon gave me it.
Yeah.
Just for a little change.
I liked it. You told it really well.
Thank you very much. I loved it.
Yeah.
Thought it was very fun.
I'm glad we started with yours as well tonight.
Light-hearted. So, yeah, now you can at least listen to half a Twisted Britain episode and tune out if you don't want to listen to Bob's misery.
That is not quite how I was going to put it, but okay, thanks very much.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
And on that wonderful note, we're going to go and get another drink and apparently move out the cellar.
It's apparently settled down in the settle-in.
The settle-in has settled down.
See what I did there?
And we're going to resume our nice comfy seats that are...
I know, my bum's going a bit numb on this old
a
wooden
bit
deck
warmer out
chair.
there. So we're going to go get a drink and we'll be back in a minute.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm Rosie.
And I'm Ryan.
And we make the Voice of the Victim podcast.
We share stories about horrible things that happen to real people, and we try our best to tell it from the perspective of the victims and the survivors.
We also try to spread awareness of abuse that could be taking place around any of us, and talk about ways we can stay alert to help prevent it.
We want to be encouraging to survivors and help other empathetic people to appreciate the value of awareness.
Find Voice of the Victim podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts.
And remember, if you see something, say something.
So that's us back. Drinks refilled, and we have managed to move out of the cellar.
In slightly comfier positions
Yes, we
now.
have. We have a couple of comfy seats now in our usual cave situation, which we are both slightly happier about. And I've got a full pint, so I'm all right.
Good.
So like I said earlier on, this is it's a really kind of... I know all of our cases that we talk about are sad cases because
It's the nature
the nature of the podcast and everything. But this one's kind of... it's a very modern issue, and it's not going away anytime soon. You didn't see the post earlier because I banned you from social media.
Didn't look, I promise.
But I've posted some links to things for people that for information purposes.
Okay.
And you'll understand what I mean when I start talking about it. So this is the story of a guy called, a boy called Breck Bednar. And Breck Bednar was murdered through a case of online grooming through a games server.
Oh, this is ringing a bell.
So this happened in 2014, in February 2014, and I remember this story when it broke, and it kind of stuck with me, and it was before I think I'd gotten fully into true crime as we are now, but it's because I've always been a gamer, and I understand that premise of doing online gaming, but I'm a bit too old to have ever really been properly involved in the way that this goes about, because it was before your Xbox One. You just jump on and stick some headphones on and stuff like that, so they all used separate chat servers and all that kind of stuff, but I'll talk a bit about that as we go along.
Okay.
We'll come back to thoughts, and I think both of us will probably have a fair bit to say at the end of this.
Okay.
We haven't got a huge amount of time left in the pub, but I'll try and keep my short story as short as I possibly can. This has been, like I say, a story that's been on my list of ones to do for quite a while now. And I hope I've done it justice. There's a lot of bits and pieces online. There's not a huge amount of podcasts that cover it, because, one of my ways to do the research is to listen to other people's takes on it. There's a couple of other ones that we'll put links up to. But actually the mum of Breck, Lauren, goes and does talks in schools about safety online and stuff like that now. So I've watched a couple of her, I think lectures is probably the right word, where she goes in and talks about it.
That's amazing.
We'll continue for this week on all of our social media posts, I think, including the ones for your story as well, putting up a link to ChildNet International.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is it's a great resource for parents and carers and children alike, and it has a specific gaming information area. So I think it's definitely worth us putting up. So anyway, like I said earlier, it's not one for the faint-hearted, but I'll batter in. I'm also going to put some recorded audio from one of the police calls that happened during it, and it's quite disturbing.
Right.
So I'll let you listen to it, and then we can chat about it before I carry on. So Breck Bednar was a 14-year-old who was murdered on the 17th of February 2014 by an 18-year-old who he considered to be his friend, Lewis Daines.
How old was Breck again, sorry?
Breck was 14.
14.
He'd met Lewis Daines through an online gaming server that Lewis Daines hosted.
Okay.
I'm going to play a kind of slightly edited version of the call that Daines made on the day of the murder, and I'll play it in now for people to hear, and then we'll carry on.
Okay. Hello. I need police and a forensics team to my address, please.
What do you mean? What's happened?
My friend and I got into an altercation, and I'm the only one who came out alive.
Are you telling me you've killed somebody?
Yes, I am.
Right, and who am I speaking to?
My name is Lewis Daines. I'm 18 years old, and I live...
Right, okay. And what's actually happened?
My friend came to stay the night with me yesterday, feeling very down, feeling suicidal. And I woke up this morning, he was in a mess. I tried to calm him down. I hugged him, then said that I was there for him. He grabbed... He shrugged me off.
Can you just bear with me a second? Don't tell me any more, okay? You're telling me he is definitely dead?
Yes, I'm telling you he's definitely dead.
Okay, so he came to stay with you.
I can explain this to the officers when they
I will. I need to take these initial details.
I know. He came to stay with me the night. I did my best to comfort him. I woke up this morning. He was in a mess. I tried again.
Right, just slow down again, Lewis. I need to take these details. So did you have an argument with him last night?
No, we were fine.
You were fighting?
No, we were fine. We were fine last night. We both went to sleep. I said that we were fine. I woke up. He was just standing up. He was in a mess. hands on his face. I got up, I put my arms around him, and I said it was okay. He just shrugged me off and said no. I can't remember exactly what he said. He was going on about how he didn't want to go home. He was fed up with his life, and he didn't want to go.
Right,
And
okay.
I have a penknife on the side of, in my room, adjacent to my bed. I have a chest of drawers. After shaving the TV and stuff on there, I had a penknife on there, folded. He picked it up, opened it, and then lost control. I, in self-defense, put my left arm up to block him from stabbing me effectively. We struggled. I got him to the ground. He got up. I got the knife. Can you not interrupt me with this part?
Okay, go on.
Okay. This is being recorded anyway, isn't it?
Yep.
I grabbed the knife and I stabbed him once in the back of the neck, I believe somewhere near the brainstem. He turned around, he tried to carry it on, and I think I stumbled on my chest of drawers. I fell over. I got back up, backed away, and then I don't remember exactly what happened, but the fight ended with me cutting his throat. I believe I turned around and I slashed his throat. He fell onto the bed face first. I was trying to compress the wound at that time. And
Lewis, are you still in the room where Breck is?
No.
Where are you?
Look, don't interrupt me. Just let me explain this if this is being recorded. I didn't know what to do. I felt like I don't remember what happened after that. All I know is I dropped the knife in my hallway. I stripped down and just sat in the shower. Look, are the police on their way? I can hear something.
They are.
I'm going to go and do my part. Please, thank you for your help.
Right, just listen.
Based on your face, having listened to that, I can see you didn't quite enjoy it, shall we say.
No, it's pretty...
It's grim listening.
It's very hard listening, actually, that.
It
doesn't really... I don't really know where the story's going to go, based on that call alone. Like, obviously, like, he's, like, saying there's, like, this altercation, but straight away, like, the vibes I get from that are... I hate the way that he keeps on saying, don't interrupt me at this bit, and like, this is being recorded anyway. Like, he's, like, very, like...
Matter of fact.
And it's, like, very, like... That's very well thought. I don't know, like...
It's been planned.
People, like, behave differently in times of stress and distress and panic and stuff like that, and that's what they tend to say these days, that you can't say that somebody's guilty based on the way that they're acting straight after the fact, because everybody acts differently and you're not to know how somebody's going to act. But nonetheless, I get a very bad feeling from that.
So I absolutely agree with you, but the issue I have with it is the huge level of self-righteousness he has in it. The recording, that I've listened to it quite a few times, and it boils my blood. Mm-hmm.
My biggest issue with it is that if he's saying that it's self-defense, why do you stab somebody in the back of the neck?
Well, I can
imagine you will.
Yeah, I'll get to that. I'm going to say here, I think he's probably one of the most horrible people I've ever covered, and possibly one of the most horrible people we will ever cover.
Blimey.
I've put here that he's actually so bad that I won't put him on my list of bad bastards. Our list of bad bastards is quite extensive now.
It is.
But he won't go on it because I don't want him on it.
Okay.
I don't like him, and I don't want to. In fact, I'm going to not use his name throughout the rest of this. I want to focus on Breck, basically. Okay. So I'm going to call him the perpetrator anytime I talk about him. So the story that leads to the scenario of the phone call is basically Breck was a model student. He was a very, very intelligent young man who attended St Bede's School in Surrey. He was a member of the Air Cadets. He was an avid churchgoer. He was mad about computers. Mm-hmm. He spent all of his spare time on computers, mainly gaming. Built his own computer for gaming and all that kind of stuff. Breck's parents, Barry and Lauren, were American, but they'd moved to Surrey before Breck was born because of his father's job. And his mother was he was either an investor or worked in some kind of oil investment firm. And his mother was a teaching assistant. The parents divorced in 2006 when Breck went to live with his mother and his triplets, the triplet younger siblings.
Oh.
From the accounts I could read, they'd been trying to have babies for a while. Breck had been, after trying for a long time, an absolute blessing. And the triplets were a result of IVF.
I was about to say IVF. That happens quite commonly, actually.
Absolutely it does, because of the amount of implementations and all that kind of stuff. So like I say, Breck was a big gamer. He played on PC, which is something I've never done. I've never been a big PC gamer.
No. I had my
consoles.
time. I used to play a pretty good Barbie scuba diving game back in my day.
Nice. Sounds
And
great.
Lemmings.
Let's get that back
Lemmings.
up. So him and his friends would game online, and they used a program called TeamSpeak 3, which is basically like a kind of live Skype-esque thing.
Right.
So it would be a conference call where they were all chatting away.
I don't know much about.
Right, okay, so basically what was happening was they were playing a game, but separately to the game they were using TeamSpeak to chat to each other.
Okay.
Which is why I said this...
Is that like those things you see online when there's like a little video in the corner of like somebody's face talking away and stuff?
Probably kind of.
Or it's just like audio?
It would have been audio
Right.
and message-based
Right.
stuff. So it's not like you would be on an Xbox One or a PS4, which is integrated into it. Mm-hmm. It was separate. It was separate, and that's talked about because in his computer setup he had 3 screens, one with a game on, one with TeamSpeak on, and then another screen for
whatever
internet stuff, I guess, probably.
Yeah.
And they ended up on a server, so they played Battlefield. Which was obviously a massive game, and part of Battlefield is you play online as part of a team and all that kind of stuff. And the big thing about it was you didn't go on to a centralized server that was hosted by the company that built it. You went on to different servers that were hosted by other people around the world.
Right.
So they ended up in this server that was hosted by the perpetrator. And he told Breck he was a computer engineer and he was worth a whole load of money. And he'd made all his money through Bitcoin sales. In fact, there's a bit where he talks about... he'd made so much money off Bitcoin, he'd given some of it to Syrian rebels to help them out and everything.
What?
We'll get to how much of a liar he was in a minute.
Just absolute bullshittery.
Yeah, absolutely. So the perpetrator managed to convince Breck and his other friends that he was a computer engineer living in New York, and he worked for contracts for the government and for secret agencies and loads of other things. And now, they were 14 years old. Mm-hmm. So this guy would have been like an online god to them. You know, this guy's running an epically fast server.
He's this rich Bitcoin mogul.
Worked for the government, all that kind of stuff. Whereas actually,
young boys are easily influenced.
Absolutely, and especially by things like that. If you're in tech,
if you think you're like really cool, yeah.
So the perpetrator actually lived in Essex and was unemployed. So Lauren, Breck's mother, tells the story of when she'd been into his room one night, and she makes a point of saying that he left the door open to his room. He didn't have any issue with his mum coming in. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He was just gaming. Mm-hmm. She came in one night, and he had the 3 screens set up, and one screen with TeamSpeak on, and then one with the games on. And she noticed one of the names on the chat forum, and she was like, "Who's that?" He says, "Oh, it's a new friend I've got who's 17, he's nearly 18, he works for the US government, Mum. He's amazing at computers." And you can imagine this guy was like caught up in it. So she questioned the guy's picture about it, and then Breck said, "Oh, it's just an avatar, it's an online profile, that's not really him anyway." So eventually, after spending a lot of time on the game server and telling his mum stories of his new friend, Lauren, his mother, came into his bedroom while he was gaming, and he would tell the group of gamers, "Oh, that's my mum here," you know, thinking, right, just keep what you're saying down to a minimum, obviously.
Yeah, be cool,
be cool, mum's here. However, the perpetrator actually just said hello to her. "How are you doing? What are you up to?" And she, first time this had happened, she said, "Oh, I've been out at a dance class." And a dancing lady gif appeared on the screen. And she was like, "Oh, that's cute, you know, he's that's nice of him." But however, over a period of time, Lauren started to become the enemy.
Oh.
She had done what I think is an incredibly right thing to do for a parent, and she'd restricted the time he was spending online.
Quite right.
Putting
Go outside.
putting a certain stop time on the internet, and making sure that he wasn't spending his entire life.
Quite right. Get your homework done, play outside.
Go outside.
Make real friends.
Actually, when I Googled this, just before I carry on, I Googled pictures to put up on our social media feeds earlier, and I looked at, basically Googled online grooming. Online gaming grooming. And yet a lot of the pictures come up are like, how to deal with of iPhone's battery's dead. Go outside. And it was all these kind of things. And you're like, actually, there's a huge amount that goes with that. I sound like a really old man saying that.
No, but I think so. I remember when I was younger, if I was like being lazy and sat outside, Mum used to say like bizarre things to me. I used to find it quite funny. But she'd be like, go outside, like find something to do. Play with sticks.
Yeah, totally.
And I'd be like, what? Go play with sticks. There's a box.
Something.
And I remember my mum this is one of my favourite things my mum ever told me. And she was like, when I was younger, we used to just get like a cardboard box and like just go down a hill on it. Which begs the question, what kind of box are you in? How slidey are the pavements where you grew up? Like, how do you get enough speed?
You and your mother are going to have a conversation. I think we're going to have to build some kind of
I presume it's like a grassy hill, but she said no, it's just like the road. And I was like, what? Did it have wheels? No.
Do you think she'd still do it if we asked her?
Oh, 100. Mum's game, yeah.
That is absolutely the perfect hill outside for her to do it on as well.
That's it. Twisted Britain box sledding with Mum.
Yeah, let's do it. We'll take a video. So obviously, with the restriction on time on the internet, that didn't go down particularly well with the perpetrator. He wasn't very happy that his one of his friends, minions probably, was being restricted, and the gifts stopped being dancing ladies and stuff like that, and started becoming the Wicked Witch of the West. Hitler goose-stepping and things like that when she came in the room.
I said I was going to try and like limit my F-bombs and stuff from now on, but fuck off.
Yeah. Breck had started to become manipulated by him, so that the mum was the bad guy, basically. She was the one that was stopping his potential and all this kind of stuff. And I say stopping his potential because the perpetrator had started to tell Breck, I've got a job for you. You don't need to go to school. I'll get you a job, $100,000 a year doing computing things. And it was all just this web of shite. And obviously we'll never know what was actually said in the servers. Yeah.
Life that he was painting.
Absolutely. And this kid was tech daft. So it would have just been music to him. Yeah. We will never know what was said in the web service, obviously, because it was, So the manipulation continued, and Breck started to question, why should I do my chores? The perpetrator says, it's the triplets that make all the mess, so I shouldn't have to clean it up. Mum's like, well, no, actually, we all have to do chores. It's part of being a grown-up and all that kind of stuff. And he also said, you don't need to go to church. You don't believe in God. And everything started to be premised with the sentence, Lewis says, and I know I wouldn't say his name, but that's, everything from you don't believe in God, you don't go to church, you don't need to go to school, I've got you a job, but everything was always Lewis says. It got to the point, however, where some of the other friends on his online server started to question the things they were hearing and going, this is a bit fantastical. This isn't quite right. But as soon as they started to question it, they got kicked from the server. They weren't allowed to play on there anymore. And Breck started to turn against his friends.
That's just absolute classic manipulation, that.
Yeah, it really
Scare
is.
tactics, isn't it? If you start questioning me, I'm going to just get rid of you.
You're out.
Horrible.
So Breck started to turn against his friends to the point where he actually quit the Air Cadets because he was told by the perpetrator, one of them said something about you. And so he quit. He says he didn't want to be there.
So now you're isolating him, another classic manipulation move.
So he was starting to isolate Breck from his friends entirely.
Goodness sake.
His mother, as I said, was working as a TA, teaching assistant. And she actually started to ask at work, at her school, about online grooming and what she could do about it and stuff like that. But this is, we're talking 5 years ago.
When,
so
it was a bit
the advice she got wasn't great. She was asked one day by Breck to come up and read a letter on the computer that he'd written.
That Breck had written?
Invited up to read a letter that Breck had written. It turned out to be, and in her words, a manifesto.
Oh my goodness.
Is what she says in her lectures that she gives.
Oh my God.
It was actually basically a 2-page document that Breck said, I don't need to do this. If you don't let me do what I want to do, I'm going to run away.
Oh my god.
She knew it hadn't been written by
Yeah,
Breck.
it's not him, is it?
Because it wasn't him. That wasn't his. He was a really nice young guy.
Yeah.
And she was confirmed by this one because when she printed it, it said it was authored by the perpetrator.
Oh.
So this all started to build to a head to the point where she actually contacted the police.
Good, okay.
And she reported them saying she thought her son was being groomed online, and this was the name of the person that was doing it. The police did literally nothing about it. They reassured her they would look into it, and we would look into our information sources, and don't worry about it. And the advice she was given was just pretty much it's just
bare bones.
It's just no, it wasn't even that. It was bullshit.
Oh.
It really was. It was to the point where can you not use another website?
Oh my!
That's not how it works.
No,
you know, that's just it. Just shows you the lack of understanding as to what was happening. If they had taken the time to search the perpetrator's name, they would have been found that he was on police records for previous allegations of rape.
Oh my god!
Of another young boy.
Oh my god! Oh my god! See now, at this point, considering the 999 call that you've played, I've just got already I'm just being pushed further and further away from any.
Oh.
I don't even know the word I'm looking for.
It was fantasy.
Doubt.
It was fantasy.
About
it was
what
absolute
happens,
fantasy.
you know?
So.
Oh my god.
Lauren took Breck's technology off him for a week.
Okay, good.
And went, look,
this is too far.
Go outside. You're not on the computer for a week. Which.
Do you know what? Thank God mobile phones weren't. What year is this again?
2014. So there was mobile phones.
Well, it was mobile phones, but
I've probably got an iPhone that's about that age, to be honest.
Yeah, to be fair. But do you know, now, if you took a computer off a kid, they've got a million other ways to get in contact with each other. So at least, that was kind of something.
So during the time that he had the technology taken off it, Lauren started to do a bit of investigation work herself, looking up on social media to see if she could find the perpetrator, and finding that he had no Facebook profile.
Oh.
And if he was a 17/18-year-old that didn't have a Facebook profile, to me,
something's a bit weird there.
Well, it's wrong. And she arranged a meeting with the other parents of the children that were in the.
Very good. The server.
The server, thank you. And basically, it was about how dangerous this whole situation was, and that there was a huge amount of concern about what was going on. What they didn't know was Breck had a MP3 recorder, so some kind of dictaphone type thing, and he recorded the whole meeting.
Oh my god!
And he passed it on to the perpetrator.
Oh my god!
And so he knew that all the families were against him. From here, it kind of goes. I've used the word dark, as in everything just kind of got quiet, not twisted dark.
Yeah, got you. Just
everything went dark, went a bit silent. And the online stuff, the gaming and everything. The game, he was allowed back on his games because he was told he wasn't supposed to be on that server and all that kind of stuff. But what they didn't know was that the perpetrator was also on the same server, but it was just under a different name. And Breck was keeping it quiet and stopped talking about him at all. And everything kind of went back to normal. He went back to his normal self and he was happy Breck again. So Mum rightfully thought, everything's okay now. So, at this point, Breck was getting ready to go on an exchange trip with the school. I put Spanish exchange trip, but I'm questioning myself whether it was a Spanish exchange trip. But he was going on some kind of, you do it at school. You've got a pen pal that you write to, and you go away. And what people didn't know was that in the lead up to this, Breck had been talking to the perpetrator online again, obviously, and saying, and he'd been telling them. He was sick. The perpetrator was getting sick, and he needed Breck to study up on some software so that he could hand over the business to him. And you need to look at the software. So during the trip, Breck actually posted a picture of him with his first girlfriend.
Oh.
Didn't go down well with the perpetrator, saying you're supposed to be studying the software. What are you doing? She's a whore. You shouldn't be with her. You're supposed to be getting ready to take over the business with me and all that kind of stuff. But and he was obviously offline more, and I would imagine he didn't study the software. I don't know that for a fact, but the head of a 14-year-old boy to me that's just met a girl on a Spanish exchange trip, his mind was elsewhere. What I hope his mind was elsewhere anyway. So on his return back to the UK, Breck was picked up by his father at the airport. His mother and father were divorced at this time. So it was Dad's weekend with the kids. And back to the house, and Breck said to his father, "Is it alright if I go and meet one of my friends, Tom? We're going to rebuild our computers together." And Dad said, yeah, of course you can go and do some computer stuff. That's what you're into. That's not a problem. So at 7 a.m. on the 16th of February 2014, a prepaid taxi came to pick up Breck. The taxi had been paid for and sent by the perpetrator, and it took him to the house in Essex. This was the last time even his parents would have seen him.
Oh, God.
He was convinced he was going to a business meeting to talk about things, because the perpetrator had convinced him that, I'm really sick, we need to do this now. It was the only time Breck had ever snuck out of the house telling lies that we know of. We can't say that for certain because this is his parents telling the story and the information that I was getting. But he snuck out in false pretenses. What he didn't know that was he was basically on his way to be brutally murdered in a sexually orientated attack by what was a monster.
I actually just got a little cry. I actually just can't stand this.
Later that night, Breck texted his dad saying, "Oh, you'd be really proud of me. I've upgraded the operating system and the computer, and could I stay over and I'm going to have pizza tonight?" His dad was like, "Yeah, of course you can. Not a problem. Why would you say any different?" The next we know of is the extract of the police call that I played earlier. However, it's all bullshit. When the police arrived at the house, the account that was given in the police call was just absolute crap. Breck was found bound by the police. They also found his clothes had been cut off him and bloodstains all over the house, along with the knife in the hall, like it was said in the police extract. They also found hard drives and mobile phones that had been put in a sink of water in a clear attempt to try and destroy them.
Oh, God.
What they did find, which is both horrible and disgusting, was messages on the perpetrator's computer that contained images of Breck's dead body, and these messages had been sent to friends of Breck. And sadly, because of these images, that's how news reached his siblings of his death.
Oh my God.
Danes, the perpetrator was charged with his murder and pleaded it was all done in self-defence, as he did in the police extract.
Fuck off.
The evidence, however, showed that it couldn't have been self-defence because he was found to have been restrained when the fatal blow had happened, during which time his clothes had been cut off. The perpetrator had also bought condoms and gaffer tape online before the incident. Breck's computers hadn't been destroyed, so they managed to recover them and all the messages that were contained on his hard drive, so they had that as evidence. The plea remained not guilty until he walked into the court and stood up in the courtroom and pleaded guilty in front of everybody, which was a massive shock because he'd pled not guilty throughout self-defense, but on his first occasion in court in front of Breck's parents, pled guilty. He was sentenced to a minimum sentence of life in jail with a minimum of 25 years.
Good.
Which means he'll get out when he's 44.
You shouldn't ever get out, you should die in prison, a sack of shit.
Not that we're opinionated in Twisted Britain on our correction system, but there we are. I 100% agree with you, by the way.
What did you mean?
I've skipped over a few things there because I didn't want to go into too much detail, but obviously what has happened in that room will never be fully known because the perpetrator never told anybody what happened. He pled guilty.
It's pretty clear what fucking happened.
And he pled guilty based on one of the drama documentary thing I was talking about.
Right.
The docudrama.
Yep.
There's a psychologist in it that said basically he wanted to be in charge of the situation.
Yeah,
he's
going to plead guilty when he's good and ready and when it's a big show and everybody's there to watch and the media are there and...
Yeah, absolutely.
Fuck right off.
So, there has been, like I say, I've tried to do it justice as much as I can.
I think you've done. I think you have.
And not say his name at all. Breck was a very, very intelligent but unfortunate young man who got caught up in something that he should never have done. And to me, the reason that it sticks with me is it shows you that actually, when you interact with somebody online, you've no idea who they are.
Of course you don't. And
that could be gaming or social media or in any stretch of the day. We're both adults and we know how to deal with ourselves, but a 14-year-old, you don't know how to do that. I'm not going to say the good thing that's come out of it, but the thing that's come out of it is a thing called the Breck Foundation.
Okay.
That was set up by his mum, and I'm going to read you the thing off their website. Mm-hmm. The Breck Foundation is a charity founded by Lauren, his mother, after the tragic loss of her 14-year-old son, Breck Bednar, through internet grooming. Using Breck's story, Breck Foundation speakers travel the UK educating the digital generation to keep safer online. We campaign for a safer internet and help train police, educators, health practitioners, safeguarding leads, parents, pupils, to ensure the young people are empowered to make safer choices themselves online. And they have a thing that they've written out, and it spells Breck, and it's be aware, report it, educate, communicate, and keep safe. And their motto is play virtual, live real. And it's lovely. Actually, their foundation is really lovely, and they take online donations and all that kind of stuff. If this has affected anybody, please do look them up. It's quite an incredible foundation they've done. I've got a bit more. We'll post. There's bits that go with the be aware, report it, educate. But I've just copied and pasted that. We'll post that up. Like I said before we started this, I knew it was going to be one that it's not a comical Twisted Britain story about something. It's just something that where it was probably one of the first true crime cases that I ever looked at and went, I'm really interested in that because I was a gamer, and especially now as a parent, I'm looking at my boy and going, how do you keep him safe? Keep him safe, because in such a modern world where anything like that, absolutely, it's just terrifying. So I'm going to personally follow. What's terrible? Do you know what the scariest thing you said during that whole thing was that he was like an open child, like they didn't hide it. No, he spoke to his mother. Absolutely terrifying. So I think that was the bit that made her... And that she tried to get help. That's absolutely terrifying. Yeah, that's what annoyed me the most. So what boils my blood is that the perpetrator was so callous and cold in his communications with the police. Mocking. Yeah, absolutely. And the bit that really annoys me is that the Surrey Police Force didn't take this as seriously as they would have now. Yeah. And as it was. Yeah. Do you know what I remember actually when I was at school? I can't remember, like I've got like a vague memory, like not a complete memory. I think I must have been quite young. But I remember going somewhere and it was like this, I think it was like up the road from where I grew up, Helensburgh, on the west coast of Scotland. Up the road, there's like Faslane Naval Base and stuff like that. And I think there's like an army camp somewhere in between. And I think it was there that we went with school for this day out. And they taught us all this like different safety awareness stuff. Like I remember like there was a bit about fire safety. Like they put you in a room and they turn the lights off and they set off like a fire alarm and they play all this noise as if like the room's on fire and they like teach you what to do, like get to the floor, you know, try and get to a door, touch the door, see if it's hot, all that kind of stuff. And in there was a lesson about cyber awareness, and they had us all go into this room, and it was like all these different computers and you got put in groups or pairs or whatever it was. And like you sat and you were on this like messaging forum, like MSN type, whatever. Yeah, okay. And what you didn't know was that you were actually typing to a policeman. Right, okay. Who was doing his best job of impersonating like a groomer. That's incredible. And they'd see what kind of response, like how much information would you, how much can and they'd say like, right, you've told me that you're from Helensburgh and that you're this age. Never do that. No. Cause cause you didn't meet this man and then suddenly this bald, middle-aged policeman's like, this me you're talking to, not a 13-year-old girl. So, you know? Well, that was Lauren, Breck's mother. And it needs more of that. Absolutely. Lauren's Breck's mother, that was her main concern when she contacted the police was, what if he's a 50-year-old man? Mm-hmm. She didn't think he was a 17-year-old or 18-year-old guy. Of course he wasn't, though. But it turns out he was. He was just a monster of a man. Do you know what? Like... And I think this is the first time I've managed to openly shock you, but yeah, this is the worst thing we've ever talked about. It is, but I'm glad we have a forum to do so. I agree. Because it's a really, a deadly subject, because nobody knows what to do about it, and it's not going to get any better now, because the more open the internet becomes, the more dangerous a place it is. It's a wonderful, wonderful tool. We use it for our research.
But unfortunately, other people can use it as a tool in a different way.
Yeah, you can use it as an educational tool. You can use it as loads of different things. But I like the Breck Foundation's premise of be aware, report it, educate, communicate, and keep safe. If you can do those things, and it's actually that communicate thing that I get most. If you were ever worried about something, the communication sorts it. Not that Lauren and Breck didn't have communication, it was too far down. So yeah, like I said, we will post a couple of links to things that, in case, and I don't want to do that premise of a thing that you hear at the end of like documentaries. You know, if you've been affected by this, please.
No, but do though.
But do, and have a look at the ChildNet International page, because the stuff that's on it's incredible. And the Breck Foundation page has some really cool links to how to deal with child safety for different age groups. So there's one for 4 to 7s, for 8 to, I think it's 8 to 12s, and all that kind of stuff. And they're just wee videos that you could watch with your kids, and they would help keep them safe, keep you safe.
Good.
And hopefully stop this ever happening again.
Yeah.
The sad thing is, when I researched this is obviously not the only case of this happening. It's just the one that, it's the one that stuck with me, because I remember it because he was a gamer.
Yeah.
I hope you've stuck with us, because it was an important point we were making at the end of it.
I mean, I'm not going to lie, Bob, I did not enjoy that.
No, sorry.
But I think you did it justice.
I hope so, and it's the only time I've ever researched a story and felt like contacting the people that were directly involved with it and saying, is it okay if I do this?
Yeah.
We'll share their Breck Foundation pages.
Good.
And we'll like them, and please do have a read. We'll move off of that now and do our usuals. Thank you very much for listening, everybody. Thank you very much for listening. If you have enjoyed what you're listening to, please do give us a like on our social medias. You can find us on Twitter.
Twisted Britain.
You can find us on Facebook.
Twisted Britain.
And you find us on Instagram.
Twisted Britain.
We have a lovely discussion group that I would hope we can have a chat with everybody about this kind of stuff later on.
Which is Twisted Britain Discussion Group on Facebook. You'll
find us there. We have a lovely website with all links to everything on it. It's just twistedbritain.co.uk. If you like what you're hearing and you want to hear more of Twisted Britain, you can subscribe to our Patreon, where we are posting an extra episode every month.
Yeah.
They'll be not more like the Howard, but they'll be different. There'll be different things, and we're going to use it as a experimental stage for us to do different things. We're going to do interviews with different people.
Things that interest us.
And we hopefully have a couple of specials coming up with other podcasts at some point soon that we will push hugely on our social media channels. So
we'll keep you in the loop.
Thank you very much for listening, everybody. I hope we haven't brought everybody's night down. Nadine's now looking at me with the saddest eyes I've ever seen.
I don't think I've ever been so close to crying during this before.
I apologise. It was going to get to this stage at some point.
Yep.
But yeah, thanks very much for listening, everybody. We'll see you again next time.
Bye.